Hey everybody, we are going to get started, so please make your way to the stage and find a seat. We're going to get started. Thank you. Hey everybody in the lobby, if you can make your way up to the stage, we're going to get going. All right, welcome everybody. We are super excited to kick off the hackathon today. At 3 p.m., we'll be transitioning this event to the Polygon event with Vitalik and Ilya and Sriram. But until then, we'll be having a wide variety of exciting brainstorming workshops. And until then, we are going to announce a lot of the sponsors, talk about some of the bounties that have been listed. There's over $17,000 worth of bounties, which is super exciting. Just for context, this is the kickoff to an online hackathon that starts today. This online hackathon lasts for 10 days, and it ends next Wednesday. And we'll be having a closing ceremony at Stanford University talking about all the winners, just demoing them. So until then, definitely check out the bounties if you go to edgeintelligence.xyz and check out this event. Otherwise, you can check it out on Twitter. There's a dev post. That's where everyone's going to be submitting their bounties. And who here is a sponsor? Please raise your hand. All right. Can you guys come over here? Because we're going to give a quick TLDR on what you're doing. And for those who are sponsoring that are not here, I will be talking about the bounties that they're listing. So without further ado, I would also like to introduce Era, who's the founder of Edge. And Era, just you can take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first Autonomous Agent Hackathon. My name is Era. I'm the CEO of Edge, and very excited to see everyone here to join us this journey. So quick background about us. What is Edge? Edge is a research and development organization dedicated to edge intelligence. When we started about like a year ago, like when Ilya and I started looking into this space, it was like fast evolving. The AI space was like quickly changing every day. When OpenAI is no longer open, when the whole entire like large language model become a capitalist game, we ask ourselves, what does it mean for individual? What does it mean for self-soaring intelligence stack? So that's how we start our journey. We want a future which is open, autonomous, and self-soaring. So at Edge, we focus on three important things. Number one, open source tech. We want to encourage collaboration and collective intelligence. Second, we focus on self-soaring individual. We want to make sure you, in this rapid evolving space, you will have your own intelligence stack, like fully autonomous, controlled by you. And last but not least, edge intelligence. How to combine this decentralization, like this edge topology, with intelligence together. So that's about Edge. And this is our first series. We launched Chain of Thoughts. It's an applied AI in Web3 series with Summit Research Organization and also Hackathon together to look into it. I know there's a lot of buzzword. Like with East Denver, there's at minimum like 3-4 different AI Web3 talks every day. But we want to focus on the applied use case, experiment, actually trying to build. So this is our 10-day hackathon. We start here with a transformer assembly to kick this off. And I'm excited to what will be built this week. And hopefully, you'll join us this journey together. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
All right, and now we're just going to have some of the sponsors come up, talk about their companies a little bit. So, Sentient, you want to come first?
Hey everyone, I was not fully prepared, but Sentient is actually a new project in the AI space. Sandeep is one of the co-founders. We're getting this kicked off. We will be unveiling a lot more details soon. And we also helped organize the summit that will be happening today. So thank you.
All right, Marlon, you want to come up?
Hello. Hey everyone, I'm Esli from Marlin. Marlin is a trustless co-processor which will help you to offload any of your complex workloads over a decentralized network of operators, right? And then you can, once have the compute, you can go and verify this on chain as well. We have applications ranging from AI till gaming, right? So any dApp, anyone that wants to build on top of Marlin, welcome to do so. We also have a bounties worth $5,000 for this hackathon. So feel free to build on top of it. There's a booth outside. Come chat with me. Happy to share more information. Thank you.
Yeah, and as he said, there's going to be $5,000 worth of bounties. The first one's for $500. It's the top two large language model-based applications built with Marlin. Actually, there's a lot of them. There's about 6 of them. I'm not going to read all of them off right now. Check them out online. They're on DevPost. And next, Jensen, you want to come up?
Hey everyone, I'm Ben, the co-founder of Jensen. Jensen is a decentralized machine learning compute protocol. So we essentially allow anyone with machine learning capable compute power to connect it up and allow it to be used by anyone else in the world. So the idea is, instead of using AWS or Google Cloud or renting a server from one of the big cloud giants, you can rent it from anybody else in the world. But you can do that in a task-based way. So you can interact with the protocol purely programmatically. And the future that we see that enabling is agents and models interacting with compute almost freely, like a liquid market for compute, rather than the current situation where you're renting time on somebody else's device. Jensen's a long-term project. We've been building Jensen for 4 years now. We'll be building Jensen for a lot more years. We have a bounty here. It doesn't involve using Jensen because Jensen isn't live yet, but it does involve building something that meets our vision. So something very forward-looking that kind of envisions a future where all of machine learning is decentralized. Agents will be interacting with agents and will be almost sending shades of ourselves out into the world as agents to use compute, to use data, to interact with other people, just generally kind of enabling machine learning everywhere rather than currently the kind of fragile models that we see being trained by the cloud giants. So there's a $2,000 bounty. Anybody can get that bounty. It's in any of the tracks, and it basically involves doing something very interesting and forward-looking. So please do attempt it, and come talk to me if you want to hear more about what we see and kind of what we'd like to see in that bounty. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. We really appreciate Jensen for providing that very broad bounty. That is one of 2 very broad bounties, which is very exciting. So even if you're not going to be building towards a specific prize, you can submit for this and qualify. So next, Autonomous, you want to come up?
Hello. I'm Oak. I'm one of the co-founders of Valerie, and Valerie is a core developer of the OLAS ecosystem. OLAS is a protocol which generates autonomous agent economies. So there are 2 main things that we believe at OLAS. One is that autonomous agent economies will be, basically, they'll eclipse the scale of any economy that we've seen so far. And the 2, for that reason, that we need to keep them under control, under the control of humanity. And so we have built a protocol and a tool chain to do just that. The protocol has been deployed across 5 different chains already and is seeding autonomous agent economies there. One of the most notable projects that we've worked on is an economy of prediction agents, which essentially participates in prediction markets. It's been responsible for over 10% of all Gnosis safe transactions on Gnosis chains so far to date. So basically, the protocol is in full swing. We want to basically come here to the Agent Hackathon. We will have a bounty that's live. OLAS itself actually incentivizes developers to build autonomous agents and to participate in creating this economy. So you can wait, and on their folio before long, you'll see our bounties. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Don from Nevermind, do you want to come up? Talk a little bit about the bounty you're going to list.
Hey everybody, I'm Don from Nevermind. We are building a decentralized AI payments protocol. So we're sponsoring a bounty. We're gonna pay you to get your AIs paid. So yeah, if you want to talk to me about getting your AI agents paid, feel free to do so. Looking forward to see what everybody's gonna build. Thanks. Oh, it's $1,000.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Don. And that is it for the sponsors that are physically here, but I want to make sure that we're all very aware of the other bounties and sponsors that are available. So Aura Protocol, previously known as Hyper Oracle, they're building a verifiable oracle that all developers need to bring AI in any size compute on chain. They're allocating $4,500 for people to experiment with their DeFi applications, content moderation tools, and other models, and adding new models to their OAO optimistic machine learning core. And they also have $100 for people just writing content. And I actually think this is a really cool one because not everyone here might be an engineer and familiar with the stack. So you might get an opportunity, you do have an opportunity, to make money just to write some cool stuff and start building that content portfolio of yours. So that is Aura Protocol, $4,500. Next, we have Zero Gravity Labs. This is a modular AI chain with programmable data availability layer for AI dApps. They're sponsoring $2,000. And you can find the details of all of this on DevPost, but they also have a writing bounty, which, you know, if you're a writer, now you have 2 opportunities to generate some content, which is exciting. And that is for $100 up to $500. And one person can write up to 3 different things. So that is the reason why is because their product is not live yet, and so they want some support creating some content. Next is Flock. They are allocating $2,000 for people to use their RAG bot to build decentralized applications. To qualify, you have to have a AI bot via their AI co-creation platform. And on the Twitter thread that we described all this and the dev post, all this information is there. Check out their docs. There's a few more, so bear with me here. So next one is Vanna HQ. This is a self-hosted, portable, and data and model that is allocating $2,000 to the best submission of people who build a self-hosted model using their Vanna API. And pretty straightforward, actually. That one's straightforward. So next is Ritual. They're an open, sovereign execution layer for AI that is allocating another $2,000 to just build on top of Ritual. And it's very broad. You just have to build on top of Ritual. And all their docs are also included. Jensen spoke. Mintbase, I know Luis is here, so Luis, raise your hand if you guys want to find him after. He and his team are allocating bounties, $2,000. One is for people to build the best submission that creates a cutting-edge NFT document loader for LangChain, and using their Mintbase JavaScript SDK and a GraphQL API. So that's one, and then the second one is for these concepts called templates, which are really exciting. Definitely go talk to Luis after if you want to learn more about these. These are essentially like composable front-end components that you're able to just plug into your app. They have like a Stripe template that you can just add right in, which is really nice. And a lot of it is actually just running on chain on Near. And so the second bounty is for $1,000 for people to expand, to create an interesting template, is the TLDR. Getting there, almost done. So next is Lit Protocol. This is a key management protocol that allows you to create and control your own keys that can be used to run code and sign transactions. They have $2,000 allocated to the best example that creates an autonomous agent that does compute with their OSS large language model running on Lit. So your models can actually sign transactions. That is, again, $2,000. We're getting there. This one's also really interesting. It's a general prize. It's by exabits, and they are allocating 320 H100 hours or equivalent computing resources for their favorite submission. So again, if you don't find a bounty that is sort of aligns with your interests, you're able to build anything and submit to this hackathon and qualify for these GPUs and for Ritual's $2,000 bounty. Talked about Nevermind. That's pretty much it, which is very exciting. We want to make sure we thank all of our sponsors and co-organizers. Shout out to Sentient, there, Will, and Symbolic Capital, Lightspeed. We got Crypto Soul, Erica in the building over here, 7X Ventures, and everyone else. We got Nouns Research as a gold sponsor. We have, we talked about my show, Aura, Jensen, Hum. For bronze, we have Ritual, Eigenlayer, KXVC, Talus, and Jutsu. A lot of these people will be here in the coming days, and so just to give you a quick TLDR on what we're doing, because I think everyone here wants to hear Ilya speak, today is we're hanging out here, doing some brainstorming workshops. It's very collaborative. The whole point of today is to work with the leaders of the space to identify the missing or the potential applications that could be used to submit for this hackathon. And then at 3 p.m., we're going to have to vacate the entire building and re-sign everyone in for the AGI Summit that is happening again at 3. And this is where Ilya Vitalik is tuning in online. He'll be speaking. Sandeep and Shriram from Eigenlayer. We're all going to be talking about, it's more just panels later on. And so that's happening from 3 to 9. And then tomorrow is more of a workshop session. We're going to be doing a lot of dev workshops. Downstairs is hacking pretty much all day. If you are actually submitting to this hackathon, there is a good chance that I can get you into the event later tonight. Just want to be crystal clear here. Not everyone here is approved for the event tonight. It's not up to me. We are doing our best to ensure everyone can attend, but if you are hacking, would love to have you attend, and I will probably just find you and hand you a bracelet. So that's pretty much it. Era, am I missing anything? We're all good? All right. So without further ado, we'd love for Ilya to come up. And for those who don't know Ilya, he is the co-founder of Near. He is the co-author of Attention is All You Need. I'm assuming people here know what that paper is. In case you don't, it's the Transformer paper, the T in ChatGPT. And he is an early contributor of TensorFlow and here to talk about the future of decentralized AI. So give it up for Ilya.
Thank you, Cameron. Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good kickstart of the week. Let's talk about hacking of AI in Web3. So Cameron just kind of covered on my background. Just project. Hi. So Cameron covered on my background. I've been doing machine learning for about 10 years. Got really excited about it even when I was a teenager, but worked on deep learning at Google, and was pretty exciting to be at kind of this transformational stage where deep learning went from like, well, it's a cool thing in university to actually it's used in production at scale at companies like Google. And we actually started Near as an AI startup. We were trying to teach machines to code, and we realized that there's a huge opportunity to use Web3 for data collection, kind of coordination, incentives, and at the same time, Web3 wasn't ready for that. 2018, blockchains were pretty kind of hard to use and already expensive at the time, and so we started Near protocol as a way to address that. If you want to learn more about what we're doing now as Near protocol, stop by on Wednesday for Chain Abstraction Day. But meanwhile, let's dig in. So for those who are not familiar, the language models is not a new thing. It actually existed since 50s. It's a basic statistical tool to kind of pretty much predict next word based on kind of what is a statistical analysis of the language in the wild. And it hasn't, it's a useful tool. It was used for a lot of like kind of applications, but it wasn't like this big thing. One of the fundamental changes that happened is when embeddings were kind of introduced. And embeddings is this idea that usually you have words as a symbolic, as a symbol, right? Like New York is a thing, right? It's, it's hard to decompose it, it's hard to reason about it. But the idea of embeddings is that you actually project this word into a multidimensional space, right? So you go from a word to actually a point in a space, and now you can have all words in this space, and you can now look at distances between them. You can have kind of different ways of maintaining multiple semantic meanings inside one vector of information. And so that's a really important part. And kind of if you are looking to understand more how deep learning works, is this idea that we go from symbolic language to very much kind of vectorized representation. And then these models actually maintain multiple possibilities at the same time by pretty much projecting different words and different meanings into one vector. And I'll show some examples. Now, there was kind of for language this idea of recurrent neural networks. And it's the idea that you can, similarly how humans process language, you read one word at a time. And you're maintaining context in your head, and you kind of at the end do the job, like answer a question or decide did you like this text or not. Now, the challenge with that is that it's very slow, right? We actually, as humans, read pretty slow for machines. And which means is when we want to feed the, pages and pages of text to these models, it ends up, taking real kind of human time. And so when we're using this technology at Google, we have a very strict limitation on latency, right? You don't want to wait for Google to respond, 10 seconds later, you want immediate response. And so that's actually what gave motivation for transformers, is that we want to we want to solve the latency problem. We want to be able to respond quickly, read, large amount of text at kind of the highest speed possible. And kind of the way we were doing this first was just by not using any sequence understanding at all. There's this idea called bag of words, which is, in simplistic manner, you take all the words in a sentence, you mix them up, you lose the order, and then you, based on that, try to decide what was in the sentence, right? Which sounds like pretty hard to do, but actually surprisingly works pretty well, because you don't always need to know the nuance of what order creates. Now, in parallel, there was this technology called attention that was created, and it provided this interesting tool where when you're reading kind of one word or trying to answer a question, instead of trying to have a fixed size kind of vector pretty much that compresses the whole document, you can actually go back and look up in the document what is the relevant parts of the document that you're responding to. And so combining these two ideas, the kind of bag of words and the attention, is what kind of gave birth to transformers. And the biggest benefit of this, it's highly parallelizable, it scales extremely well, it aligns very well with how GPUs work, the predominant hardware that we use for training models. And it led to massive explosion of kind of people researching and evolving these models, which gave birth to kind of ChatGPT, Midjourney, and all of this tooling. And interestingly, it also worked not just on text, but also on images, on videos, and kind of people using it for DNA sequencing and for all kinds of other stuff. So anything that has a sequential spatial mapping, you can actually use. So if we look a little bit inside, who actually here looked inside a transformer, actually seen what attention is, how it, yeah, so there's a few people. So the idea is kind of at every step of the transformer, the model is, for example, when it reads a sentence, right, for each word, it looks around the sentence and tries to find what is the relevant other words that it should augment the understanding of this word, right? So kind of, as I mentioned, each word in a way is a vector, and so it looks around as in this case, it is very ambiguous, and it's not clear if it's a, milk or a cat. And so it's able to pretty much kind of, when it scores because of a hungry, understand that it's a cat and use and kind of plug in that meaning back into the word it. And so when on the next step is trying to answer the question or produce some information, it now has this kind of context embedded in the word it. And so the idea is you can do this function highly parallel, right? For each word, you can do it independently. And then you just have a kind of this attention mechanism that synchronizes, and then you do it in parallel. So you have kind of, you can do it at larger documents, right? People now trying to do million-word contexts. And it allows you to kind of aggregate more and more knowledge for every single piece of information that you have in a document, and then leverage that to answer the questions. And importantly, you can have multiple attentions working in parallel, which are trying to pick up different aspects of what you're trying to process. So there's a lot of interesting things. If you haven't looked at kind of how attention works under the hood, I really recommend doing that. It's very fascinating. And I actually think there's a lack of tooling, like debug tooling for transformers in general in the space. Cool, but we are at the Web3 event, so let's switch gears. So AI is a really powerful tool. It's extremely kind of powerful technology that's enabling now to do really interesting things. But if it is run and controlled by, centralized organizations, we already see what's happening, right? We have, legal departments, ethic departments, kind of curation, company deciding what they do, that actually affecting the results. So instead of getting what, you have as a model, you now have like a bunch of people deciding how to change the actual real information, real data to affect based on whatever decision and politics that is involved around that. And that's a kind of highly destructive to our society process. At the same time, economically, right? If right now these models are actually outputting what mostly is in the data, you can expect that somebody will plug in an ads model directly running on every single token. So when you ask it questions like which car is better for my use case, instead of actually outputting what's in the data, it will actually start running an ad auction and produce you whoever paid the most, right? So we'll see actually transformations where the truth and information and the actual output you see will start transforming and transitioning. And this is why it's really important to have kind of control and decentralization of these models, of this technology, and in the hands of people, in the hands of communities, in the hands of individuals, to be able to actually counteract that, right? And it's exciting. We have a lot of projects that are already working on different aspects of this, and so I'll cover some of the ideas here and kind of where there's interesting things to hack at this hackathon. So to start with, here's kind of a high-level Web3 AI stack. There's pretty much 3 levels. There's a data level, which is extremely important because everything starts with data. Like these models at the end are just a statistical kind of machinery, and whatever you feed into it is what you get, right? And this is what we see right now, right? People are modifying training data, kind of customizing how things are happening. There's a lot of interesting things that Web3 can provide here, everything from crowdsourcing to pretty much curation of data sets. Second step is infrastructure, right? We have a few projects here in a room and kind of sponsoring this that are building infrastructure kind of for provable inference, provable training. We also have obviously foundation models, stability, Mistral, doing open source foundational models, which is extremely important. And we have kind of on-edge compute and retrieval augmentation, which allows to kind of power something that's really personal and runs on your device. And finally, there's lots of applications, right? Everything from AI agents, generative UIs, to kind of intelligent assets, oracles, et cetera, right? I'm going to cover a few, but obviously there's a lot more that you can leverage these technologies on. So one important kind of framework I want to mention, right, is this idea of centralization, decentralization is not the only axis that you look at. The other axis is the kind of, is this a tool or is this an autonomous kind of agent? And it's important because right now people call agents a lot of stuff. It's kind of became now like whatever you do is an agent now. And so it's important to kind of understand the difference here, right? So ChatGPT, which has agents, or GPTs or whatever, is actually a tool that is fully centralized, right? It provides you a number of ways, but you need to prompt it, you need to tell it what to do, and it does it. And they kind of adding more functionality, but it's very much kind of your interactive input. There's things like Agent GPT, which you give a prompt, you give it like, hey, here's my goal, and it kind of tries to create a plan and execute it, mostly not very well, but the goal is to build a more autonomous system. But it uses ChatGPT underneath, and so it's a very centralized service as well. Now you have like open source foundational models like Llama, which on themselves they're not centralized or decentralized, right? The benefit is they can be used in any kind of aspect, they're open source, and extremely valuable to have such a kind of frameworks out there because it allows other people to build on top of them. Now, a really cool kind of, and why edge intelligence is really important is having decentralized mindset, but not exactly decentralized inference. You can actually just run models on your device, right? I have on my laptop, for example, Mistral. I can run it, no data leaves. It just runs on my computer. I know exactly the model I run. There's no people involved deciding what should I see and what should I not see. And it's an open source model. I can kind of inspect its properties. And so it's extremely important that we continue evolving that aspect. It doesn't require to have provable inference, decentralized compute, all of those pieces right away. And then there's use cases for things like on-chain finance, right? You want to have a trading bot that is kind of automated and be able to do transactions on chain, or even more, have decentralized governance that is powered by AI. And this is where we need a lot more kind of infrastructure to power that, because now we need to have so-called singleton of a model. Models that we all know, all agree that we're running, and the output of this model is correct. And that's a really hard problem, right? Again, that Ritual and Jensen and others are trying to solve. Cool, so I'll just give a quick of some of the use cases and what you can build here. Specifically, I want to highlight Gabe here built a agent registry that's fully powered by decentralized front ends. It's stored on chain, and you pretty much can go to this link or talk to Gabe later, and you can build kind of your own GPTs. But the interesting thing is you can use any kind of backend. So you can use your local model. You can use OpenAI. You can use, we have Llama hosted. We also have Grok API key for those who really like speed and want under 1 second inference time. So we have that. And the cool thing here is that you can have these agents evolving, right? And so right now there's kind of, again, people use agents in a very like kind of broad term. So I wanted to define different agent types. And there's 3 different dimensions on which agent types are different. First of all, how you specialize them, right? So GPTs, for example, at OpenAI is a specialized with a prompt for the most part. And there is some data augmentation that they add. And so this is kind of what's already there. You can play with that. Obviously, you can fine-tune models, right? So you can take a model and you can feed more training data to it. And so with that, you'll have a custom model that potentially has, does better at some specific functions. And so with that, you can do this, for example, locally with LM Studio, and then plug it in as an API to the registry. And finally, you can have retrieval augmentation, which means you can add additional data. It fetches it on request, and it feeds into the context of your model. Now, that's how you specialize it. But importantly, right now, for the most part, what usually considered agents is outputting text, which is very limiting. And so one of the interesting things is you can have this agents output a UI, a user interface that you can start interacting with. And this is important because most of the things we actually used to using are not text. Like text is actually reading text is very slow. Actually interacting with rich UI, with charts, with dashboards, with kind of way to navigate information is way easier. And so the cool thing here with what Gabe built is that you can pretty much specialize the component, the UI that renders for the output of the agent. And so this allows you to really easily to pretty much create, for example, you have travel planning agent, it can instead of outputting a bunch of text, you can actually output a rich UI with a book button. Similarly, you can, instead of outputting text, or UI, you can just do an action, right? And again, because in a context, you already have your account, you already have your all the crypto hooked in, you can actually do an action that's fully on chain, execute something across all Web3 with chain abstraction. Finally, I mentioned autonomy, right? It's going from a tool that you use when you need to ask it to kind of plan and execute on your behalf, to be a fully kind of mission-driven, independent agent that's fully autonomous, which is used for governance, for finances, for whatever. And so that's more on reinforcement learning, for example, optimization, where you give it a high-level goal, an objective, and you actually let it run. So I'm invite everyone to build some agents at the hackathon. So tools, talk to Gabe how to plug into this. And obviously, you can use any of these backends, right, from local models to centralized to potentially plugging in, Ritual and other decentralized backends as well. We also have a really cool thing. We have a GPT-4.near, which is an account on Near that if you call it from a smart contract, it will respond to you with ChatGPT response on chain as well. So you can actually have these agents do stuff on chain as smart contracts as well. Cool, let's move on. So the next thing is age models, right? So it's important that we don't kind of continue growing the model size. So, ChatGPT model is, I think, over 1 trillion parameters. You need to have, I think, 8 A100s to actually plug it in. If we talk about, Llama 70B, still need a pretty big, I think it fits in one A100, but which is $30,000. So how do we get models that actually can run on your laptop, on your phone, and still maintain the quality, right? And so I think here the really interesting opportunity is actually to create a leaderboard and create a competition and have crypto as a way to incentivize people actually competing and building better, smaller models that are able to still perform well for the functions that people want, right? So we can have a crowdsourced evaluation set as well as competition where people are pretty much competing that. That's a pretty cool hackathon project. So you can kind of build it together and actually launch it and get people to start competing. So the other side of this I mentioned is data. And one of the important pieces is we'll see kind of more and more generative content, everywhere. And importantly, humans have this flaw. Is if I tell you that New York Times said XYZ, instead of actually internalizing it as Ilya said XYZ, you internalize it as New York Times said XYZ. It's a very interesting hack that reputable sources is kind of creating. And so this is how misinformation works, right? People literally take a screenshot of New York Times, change the title, post it on Twitter, and now people think that New York Times posted that. And this is, by the way, a real story from a journalist I was talking to. They were somebody started messaging them, why did you write this article? And they're like, I did not. That was, somebody literally just modified it. You don't need AI tools for doing that, by the way. This is happening. So a really important piece where Web3 can plug in is actually providing us reputation for the information, right? And so as a hackathon project, you can build a Chrome extension that actually analyzes the kind of the page, finds images, videos, and paragraphs of text, and checks them over a registry of hashes and sees whose reputation it is. You can also add things like community notes, similar on how it's added on X right now, so that if this is a misinformation, you can right away pop up a piece of context and potentially a person can find the original source and the real information. Really cool hackathon project, pretty straightforward, very useful, and if it actually gets adopted, we can get this into browsers and become a standard. Think of this as SSL for content, so kind of going away from just authenticated website to actually authenticated content directly. Cool. So Cameron mentioned Jutsu. So Jutsu is building generative UIs. So you're able to literally prompt it with, hey, I want to build a user interface that looks like this, or I wanted to build a data set repository on top of Near's blockchain. And so really the opportunity here is that it will increase your speed and kind of development 100-fold. So talk to Jutsu, talk to Cameron, they can get you a beta for that. Cool, so I mentioned dataset curation. So this is really important. Right now, actually, open source datasets are getting cease and desist from copyright holders because they contain copyrights from scraping data. This is already happening. The main dataset that's used by all of these language models, right, called Pile, is literally scraped from internet, right? And New York Times and others are pretty much now enforcing that, oh, it's copyright. And so we actually will have less and less training data available in open source soon because of this. And so there's an opportunity to create kind of a counterforce, an open source kind of on-chain repository of data sets, being able to collect them and be able to reference them. You can reference them to torrents, you can reference to IPFS, to RVIF, to whatever, like any of the data like holding, but you need a place where all of those data sets are available and findable. And so it's extremely important, and it's like happening right now. Like one of the video data sets got cease and desist yesterday, for example. So it's really important for this to happen, so encourage people to build. Finally, intelligent assets, right? I mentioned kind of, the idea is that we had programmable money, right? We created a way to, with smart contracts, to program value and make it kind of behave specific rules, but we still needed to put a very specific, strict rules with code, and it required also having humans writing that code and auditing it. And also, well, if you wanted to act on external information to blockchain, you needed an oracle that also is highly structured. And so the idea here, you can actually have a way to program assets with natural language and being able to process external information with this as well. And so, I mean, there's few folks already working on that. The prediction markets is a good example, but and as well as decentralized oracles that are processing natural language. But there's a huge opportunity to kind of create different new types of assets that are different from kind of traditional finance, but actually are defined with language. Cool. I know I'm running a little bit late, so I'm gonna speed up. So expanding beyond that, right? The really interesting thing is you can have AI models that completely run a business, right? So we were talking about a lot of tools and data, but if we go to application side and we have some form of autonomy to these models, you can actually have something that continuously trying to make decisions on how to improve business, what areas to invest in. And so specifically you can have kind of a project that you can build is to build a marketplace for pieces of work that is needed for the business to be done. And so the idea here, you can have people or other agents coming in and requesting a piece of work to do, attaching payment to it, and then you have on the other side either people or AIs who are actually doing the work, and you have a verification loop, right, where somebody else will verify the job is done, right? This can range from everything from write some code to grow some trees to answer these questions, to create this model, anything, and then on top of that can be wrapped into a specific system. So again, very simple marketplace order book that you can build, that then on top you can have like a whole economy of people and agents pretty much participating actively. And finally, governance. So governance is something that I've been working for a long time now, trying to figure out how do we do it better. And one of the challenges always been is that people, whoever they are, always will have their own interests that are different from interests of community. It's called principal agent problem. And kind of the only way to address it is to have the agent to be, an AI model that doesn't have its own interests and is able to take feedback and it's able to take input directly. And so there's a few ideas what you can do right now. So one of this is just on the governance side overall. You can have governance forums and governance discussions summarized into the model and provide a really easy interface for people to decide on what they should vote, right? Imagine right now you're going into kind of MakerDAO voting. There's like a ton of discussions. They happen across multiple forums, and you're like, what do I do? How do I even start understanding decision making here? So pretty simple project, very useful right now. You can have it kind of for different communities, for, on top of Snapshot, on top of AstroDAO and other tools. The other more kind of long-term thing is, as I mentioned, there's the idea of reinforcement learning agents. The reinforcement learning agent is the one that actually has an objective and is continuously trying to optimize it by doing different actions in real life. And this goes, I mean, that's not a hackathon project, but there's a world model which is trying to predict what is the next step going to happen in the real world, in the system that you are governing, right? So be that a blockchain, be that a DeFi protocol, you can actually try to predict based on all of the inputs, for example, all of the discussions on the forum, governance decisions, things on chain, what's going to happen. And the more accurately you can predict it, the better this agent can actually start making decisions based on that. And so this is something that you can build by kind of collecting a lot of this data and actually training a transformer not on the kind of predicting language, but actually on predicting the state of the system. So it can be represented as JSON, for example. So that's a really interesting opportunity, and it's kind of can become very useful really quickly because now people can actually prompt it with, what if we do X? And it tries to predict what are types of things and outcomes that will happen. All right, so bold vision of this, though, is AI President. Is as we build this model up that actually can model the world, model the systems, and is able to make decisions, we can actually give it the power to make decisions and execute them, pay for them, and you now have the kind of the stakeholders, the token holders, to be the electorate that actually is keeping that president accountable, giving it training data to fix when it's doing something wrong, maybe vetoing some decisions, but it's more in overseeing capacity where the actions are done by the kind of this AI model. So I'll just want to finish on one note. The high level is that Web3 is a powerful tool to create incentives and create kind of structure for this new innovation. It's not kind of on itself solving AI problems, but it's a powerful tool and a platform to do to create an environment. And so one of the things I'm really excited about is creating and promoting more open source AI development. Again, as I mentioned, we have kind of an attack on data sets. We have kind of problems with that models. Like if you build foundation models in open source, you don't have a business model. And so we can use Web3 as a kind of underlying platform to create these incentives and really gather everyone and kind of to be aiming in one direction and keep the AI open source, keep it in the hands of people, and make sure that it's not getting usurped by any single company. So thank you. I hope I gave you a bunch of ideas what to build. Talk to Gabe about the AI registry, agent registry, and follow on Twitter for more info.
Great. We're going to do 5 minutes of questions. Cool with that? Anyone have any questions for Ilya? If so, you're going to have to come over here because this mic is limited. Yep, you got to cruise. Sorry, guys. If so, you can sit over here.
Just scream. So, I mean, the idea for Near Foundation always been that the ecosystem, like as the ecosystem gets built, as there's more economy, as there's more kind of projects and community, the kind of the governance and decision making and funding allocation is moving into the ecosystem, right? Now, it's a journey, definitely, and we have obviously had an experiment with NDC. That's a lot of learnings there. We are experimenting with a few more things, and so I would say, like, as these experiments actually bear fruit, and we'll have some of this starting to work. We do have actually a Ilya bot that was trained on all of my talks and all of our documentation that we're testing right now. So as some of these things starting to work, we'll kind of see the transition. But I think the important part is, a lot of the work that's being done still will need to be done. It's just it will be done by participants in the ecosystem. And so kind of the point is to build out that ecosystem, how we've done it with DevHub, how we've done it with other participants, to really working together and we can coordinate that with AI as a way to kind of target everything into one direction. All right.
Hey, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to build some kind of Python library where you can just instead of importing models from the traditional ones that are not decentralized, but I'm running into a problem. Like, let's say you want to have 300 MBs, or these larger models. Like, where can I host them? Basically on chain. What blockchain would you use for that?
When you're talking about hosting, do you mean just storing the weights, or you actually want to run?
Yeah, I want to store the architecture. Let's say a TensorFlow model. I want to store the model.json, and then I want to store the weights. I want to convert the weights into JSON and store them. And then
So
I want to get them and load it.
Yeah, so you can store the weights on IPFS and or /Filecoin.
Okay.
You can also you still use Torrent. Torrent is a pretty good like data exchange protocol.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Thomason. I'm the creator of HiveNetwork.ai. So what I'm thinking right now is, in the stack that you showed, you had, the data layer, infra layer, and then, the applications. So at least like what we're building is on the app layer, so like a marketplace for agents. But there's the issue of progressive decentralization. How much is acceptable, at least in the initial stages, to be centralized. So for example, things like vector search. When you have the vector database there, even for, just doing a similarity search for your RAG application, you may have a situation where people might say, okay, what if the data coming out of the vector DB is actually being manipulated? So you need to wrap that in a ZK proof or something. You need to provide a ZK proof for the results of the search. So, I'm just curious, like, based on your experience in AI, what do you see as acceptable, areas that could be centralized in order to get things up and running?
So I think it really depends on who are you targeting, right? And what's the use cases you're targeting. I think, for example, for people like me who want to keep all the data private, I would prefer to run, for example, a node that indexes my data, runs RAG, and then I just plug it in, like similar to how you can just select local model. You can select local RAG as well, and it all runs on my computer and never leaves. Now there's other people who may not care, and like they already are part of maybe sharing all of their data with Google, and so you can maybe integrate with that somehow. So it really depends on who you're targeting and what's the kind of different use cases you're going after first.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is, what's your prediction or maybe even recommendation on how we get LLM inference on chain? Because especially for agents, we need to get the cutting edge models. We can't do like with a 100 million parameter model from, 3 decades ago. So is it OP, ML optimistic? Is it Oracle, OpenAI? Is it Ziki? What do you actually believe and recommend that I should work on if I want to get LLM results on chain?
So again, depends on the use case. I mean, we have an Oracle to OpenAI on Near right now. We have folks like Ritual who are trying to build up a network of GPU-enabled machines that can run models and pretty much provide you some sense of security. I think the important part is also like, depending on use case, you have a very different parameter of privacy and security that you're aiming for, right? Again, for some things, like I don't want any data to leave my computer, and so then the only way is to run locally, which means you need to compress models, make them more powerful. For use cases when everything's on chain, right? If you're making decisions on chain, then you're okay with potentially having a network of GPU machines that need to agree on a decision, and then you use that. But then all of that is fully public, right? And prompts and output is fully public. If you want like decentralized but private, right, that becomes really complicated. So far, I don't think anybody has that. So you have like all of this. So maybe you also have like, centralized service that you hit first, and then you like double check in some way, in like statistical ways. So really depends on kind of the use case. But there's a lot of folks that are trying to do different aspects of this. But again, I also really believe that edge models will be primarily, for a lot of cases, the way to go, because just realistically, that's a way to scale, right? We cannot rely like on, you know, every person having a GPU pretty much allocated to them so that you can run stuff.
Thank you.
We have time for 2 more questions. No shilling.
Perfect setup for what I was going to ask. So we are building a proof of inference protocol and setting up a standard inference engine so that all these different GPU providers can provide to all the different applications. How would you think about working with all the different chains so that you can, because the GPU providers and the applications are each using different chains, that's the next problem for us to figure out.
I mean, no shilling, but so we have this concept of chain abstraction. So chain abstraction is the idea that neither developers nor users should really care about the blockchain that's like underlying is, and so it provides a really nice wrapped interface around it. I recommend coming on Wednesday for Chain Abstraction Day, and you'll dive in right into all this. There's dev documentation, all kinds of stuff, or we can share it with you earlier as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Hey, Elia. I want to ask on what you thought or how you believe agents will communicate and coordinate. OLAS specifically uses a DHT. I'm sort of a thesis that a CRDT would be a better sort of primitive to enable sort of local first memory, long-term memory, and coordination. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the coordination communication layer, agent to agent.
Agent to agent. I mean, I think I don't have like a really strict setup here. I think we'll see some application that is using multiple agents kind of starting to emerge, and that will probably define the protocol. I think one of the problems we've seen, especially in crypto, is trying to like standardize stuff before anything works, and then nobody wants to use that standard. And so I think like we'll see here like some like again, we first need like a really true use case when like multiple agents are like, you know, connecting to each other and doing something. And for that, we need to understand what are the security parameters, what are the trust assumptions, like all of these different pieces, right? And then based on that, we can have like a standard to do that.
Awesome. I'm not showing my project, but I use the Matrix protocol, which is a CRDT-based DAG for my coordination and communication, which I thought was an interesting implementation.
Sounds good. All right.
Sweet. Well, thank you, Ilya. Give it up for Ilya.
All right, Transformers, are you ready? So let's dive in. So today we divide basically 4 different brainstorm sessions with compute and model will lead by Will. We'll go like downstairs, like lower level. And also collective intelligence lead by Will will be downstairs. And then compute and model, please follow Ben. It will be like upstairs. We also have 2 additional brainstorm sessions, one focused on tokenized economy, autonomous finance this afternoon, led by Matt, the head of research in Pantera, as well as a creative AI session dedicated from like our like friends and our protocol. So let's dive in. Thanks, guys.
And we'll be doing lunch at 1. So from now until then, these are the brainstorming sessions. The whole point here is for you to actually find teams to build with and talk to the bounty people who are the ones to actually give you money. They're here to support you. So yeah, make the most of this time. Lunch at 1. See you guys.